Go. Good morning, Dr. Brad.
Hello, Kurt. We meet again. And I think it's time that anybody watching, anybody, even little kids, they can hit like and subscribe and notification bells too. And if they should choose to leave comments, we'll see if we want to talk about it.
Even little kids.
Even the little
Majority of
kids.
adult population is reminds me of somebody from the adult population reminds me every day that, Kurt, I'm a pretty smart guy and I have to read your stuff 5 times to understand.
Wait, you should tell them to paste it at Claude and tell them to turn it into 5-year-old talk.
People do that. People actually, it does work pretty much.
We're gonna do it when we get.
You actually don't. You have to. You say 3rd year college. It'll do it.
I like it.
Because they say I write at postgraduate and PhD level, and they said that's too hard. That's too hard. So, which is understandable. Because I think people like you that understand these things are weird. Did you see how I spun that on you? You see how I did that? I pulled that out. I pulled that right out of nothing.
It makes a little aura appear around me.
All right. Give me a second to set up my, I think I got my workspace. I prepared this morning.
Attaboy.
All right, so
working session.
Today is a working session. It is Saturday, May 11th, 2024. We are continuing our work on embodiment, which is the use of the body to produce Vitruvianism, which is it is the system of measurement because it's the only one we're born with. And so we have to reduce everything to an analogy to experience in order to compare it, and we do that through whatever measurements we can construct, whether concretely or whether it's physically or abstractly, like logically, with the bodies and minds and imaginations and reason that we have. So I went through this morning and I went through and said, okay, what are the holes in the physics that got to be plugged? There were a few more of them than I expected. I compared the writing in the physics, which is quite concrete and quite good, to the writing we're doing here. And it's very clear to me that the narrative that we're adding here is helpful, right? Yeah. And so I was looking at the 2 pieces that we have this far along in the context of, okay, now that we've got this figured out, right? How to present the information. Yes. What benefit could we bring in the structure of the narrative? And I'm coming much closer to understanding what that's got to be like. And it really looks a lot more like tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them, right? So it looks like the traditional thing. We just need to explain at the beginning of a section or not section, but at least at the beginning of a chapter, we have to explain here's the skeleton of what we're going to explain to you before we drive into the cellular automata. Right. Because I realize I think in grains of sand, right? So it's not hard for me to hold to build something in my mind while reading it, but it's way too much of a burden on the reader, which is, I tend to be really good at weaving things together in narratives, but I haven't done that here because I'm so concerned about the opposite problem, which is the causality, the first principles, and the basis of every section we write on a very simple set of those first principles.
That's right.
Right. What I did notice, however, as a product of that work, and I'm going to share my screen in order to do it. It depends on if Brad is going to make fun. I'm preparing you to see if Brad is going to make fun of me while I do this.
I was going to ask for this, but you preempted me.
I know, that's why I said it, because I
I didn't even get to make fun of you for not being able to find the button even. Look at that. I see the slide on the right and the narrative on the left. And ChatGTP hiding in the middle.
All right. So I was thinking, so why did I have, why wasn't it hard for me to produce the slides compared to the text?
Hmm.
And the reason is that when I build the slides, actually the first thing I do is I collect the pictures necessary to tell the story. And so it's just so much easier that way, but you're constrained by the slides from the precision, the detail you can put, right? I mean, so you'd kind of want to have both. I've resisted, and I think we've spoken often about resisting putting all those graphics in. Like if I pull up this is what we're talking about today, which is how information is processed in the hippocampal region. Can you see that at all?
Yes.
And so this is quite useful, right? And I can explain it with these visuals. However, when I deliver, I look at this, I think, well, that's great, but am I actually making it less accessible?
I think so.
And I think so. When I go to something like this, I find that, that's a useful one. If I went, and when I go to these, I think these are useful.
Right.
Right. But anytime I get to the anatomical, I think it's difficult.
Right.
Right. Because when I look at here, I made this diagram because I think it's pretty clear that the body is a system of measurement, takes up space,
right,
and the body builds this information system around it.
Yes.
And most of it's done in this two-dimensional form, right? Here's the spots, they turn into hexagons, and this explains hexagons as the most effective. It's the cheapest way with basically binary information to fill all available space, right?
Right.
But I wanted to point out that we can measure distances in the air too.
Yes.
Right. And so we build this around it, and then we can build locations that way. So though our locations are a little more like they're a little more more like doorways between rooms than it is a continuous space. So I hope I'm not losing you with this.
No, you're good.
Because I'm trying to make a point. Like, here's a diagram of relations, fragments, objects, models, and entities, something we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
Right? This is quite literally what what happens, right? This hierarchy. And this is just trying to show the analogy of what happens in our minds. So that's this is basically using today's neural networks as an example of what's happening. But this is the visual cortex from the center of the back of the brain outward as it moves out through the hierarchy. I found I get to this level again where I'm thinking, well, this is what happens with sparse activation with inhibitory and excitatory neurons. I like that it shows this thing, but I feel like it's like getting too technical.
Way too deep. Way
right?
too.
It's too technical for the audience. I think when I look at this is a good explanation.
Yes.
So I'm not sure, if I look at this bit, I think it's okay. If I look at this bit, I think it's okay. If I explain that our neurons actually work like Braille, right?
Yeah, that's too much.
That's too much. If I go and say, well, here's my work on actually explaining all the layers in the cortical column, that's way too much, right?
Right.
Right.
This is for the science book.
Right. I'm not. I'm still trying to make my case here. So
We're in agreement.
Okay, it's okay if I keep going.
Oh yeah, I absolutely insist.
Okay. I do like.
Those are nice.
Like this is kind of interesting.
No, it's gorgeous.
It's pretty. And it kind of gets the point across of, holy shit, there's a lot up there. But see, the thing I like about this is when we try to make the point, it's connecting wires, it's not transferring information.
That's right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
The information transferred is connect to me.
Yes.
Right.
That's interesting.
Right. It's not, I think that's the best, the best.
I would say it's the information transferred is I'm important.
Yes.
Listen to
me. Yes.
There's enough like amplitude in this circuit, or it's a flow.
That's one of the reasons.
Flow is coming this direction.
One of the reasons for frequency is fucking pay attention to me, right?
Yes.
Ouch.
Yes.
I don't feel like this is helpful. Sometimes I think the homunculus is useful for some people.
Yes.
But so I'm almost
it's not important for our purposes.
I want to make sure I think I'm missing one more. Like I certainly don't need the communication of signals between components of the cell, right?
No, that's not necessary.
Way too low level. And I'm asking, I feel I'm asking a lot for you to be patient while I walk through this arc, but it's important to me to get clarity, and I've already got one clarity out of it. So let's.
Okay, I'm good.
I mean, this is where you are the best judge in helping me put this stuff into words.
Thank you, Kurt.
I don't know if I've got vision in here.
My job is to confirm your intuitions.
Yeah, you say that, but it might be my intuitions exist because I know I intuit how you'll respond. So, and let's not use circular logic here.
All right.
All right. So, I'm going to view where's the viewer thing? What's comments? Is this it? There it is. Let me just find this. I don't know where it is. I could have done less work here, and I like the science. I mean, that's the level I find fascinating, but I can't subject people to it. It's just too much.
Not in this work.
Lady upstairs doing something weird. Somewhere
that's what her job is, right?
Yes, here. Oh, I was just going the wrong direction. The arguments are in here, but the level of detail is too much. Here's what I was looking for.
Yep.
This one and this one. Oh, wait till you're back, right?
That's cool, man. That's
right. So this is the fragments being assembled.
That's beautiful. That
right?
second one is just a mind blower because it makes an image that's it looks like a painting.
Right. And so, but it's two steps, right? This is edges.
Yes.
This is fills, right?
It's just stunning. It makes edges and fill. This one does both.
Right, and so I like, so there are images. I'm not quite done. I don't want to say that yet.
Yes.
And here's qualia. What?
That's a funny image right there.
Why? Because of the bear?
Yeah, it's just funny. I love it.
But it's important. What do feelings feel like? They feel like changes in the
Just like,
body.
I feel like time to leave.
Okay, so I think I might have made my point here. Let me just make sure I'm not. I've got anything else here that really would help. I'm not sure about these. I think that's too low level again. The minute I get into, and I think it's when I get into anatomy.
I think you're right. It's too much, too much.
Can you imagine if we tried to write the text for all of this?
I cannot. I
We
cannot.
can't do it in the pamphlet. I mean, it's
No, and not like we're not at the
not like
functional
now. It's
level
just
that
too
we're working
much.
at would take me.
So, so that's part of the problem I've been having.
What's that?
There are a small number of images that convey extraordinary meaning.
Yes.
They're essential, right? And they're the ones that they're essentially cartoons.
Yes.
And it feels like we should be okay with a few of those. And I'm not, I think it's a big thing to start adding images.
Yes.
But when I go back to just what we're doing now with embodiment, and I go just back to these two images, I'm like, wow, I don't know how to convey that it's hard to convey that without those two. And I'm watching for your reaction.
I think those are exceptionally useful. Those two images are. And the one with the bear.
Okay, so what about
To me, they're like the images are I would make a little textual like a caption, like saying, why am I putting this here, right?
okay.
So there's a little uh explanatory note that's associated with each image that you should import. Like, why is this here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's all.
That's too much.
Yes.
Okay, so we can add cartoons. We'll have to get permission for the images. I doubt that'll be difficult because they're in academic papers.
Hmm.
To do is is cite the paper.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no, it's the artists. Those are done by an artist.
Those two are, yeah.
They're done by an artist. But the other ones are in academic papers. Nobody is offended as long as they're given credit.
That's right.
I think so. What's this one? Give me a second.
Right, you just say reprinted with permission by the whoever, right?
Yeah. It's just like it's like when I'm talking about consciousness, which is what I'm doing here, is
Yes.
the certain illustrations are really useful. Like the slowness of transmission is an advantage. Like
Right.
if our brains actually worked at the speed of light, it would be harder to develop consciousness because there wouldn't be enough time. There'd be no time. There'd be no the information, the speed of the information would be fast enough. It's like it's great to show the media at 24 frames a second, but at some point when you show the same 24 frames a second, at 1,000 frames per second, it's just noise because you can't assemble change a different. There's no the processing power you have available to detect the changes in state is slower. It has to be slower than the speed of light, right? Because if the speed of light's a limit, or electricity, right? It's a
Right.
limit. Then if you don't have a delay, you can't produce consciousness, right? Because it takes more computation to detect the changes than it does to transmit the information. Does that make sense? Tell me if it doesn't make sense.
It makes sense. It's a fine line there. It's the because it doesn't add any value to the processor. The information transmitting speed does not add any value to the processor.
No, actually, it is if it's fast enough to act, but it's not if it's too fast to contemplate. Does that make sense? Or to synthesize, right?
There's an interesting function because it's like the system is designed to function at the rate of changes that is within tolerable limits.
Yes.
And it doesn't need to operate any faster, so it won't because it's too expensive. And it's like if it required that speed, we wouldn't be able to survive anyway.
Yes. Yes.
So I look at it as biological limits, which is the environment is such that this is the optimum speed.
So I think why I like this, I'm so attached to this set of topics, is because if you have enough of these points, right, these arguments, right, you detach the mystery of consciousness into, oh, it's an effect. Somebody pushed back on me last night, which I thought was really funny, because it was on Jai Mungal's channel, and he's not a dork, right? I mean,
Right.
so, and I was like, and I'm like, well, you don't explain how there's an observer, and I'm like, the observer is the memory, right? Is the is the memory of the changes in
Right.
right? So the observer that's you, and I'm aware of this because of my health issues in the past, that's just your fucking brainstem. Are we at homeostasis? I mean, that's the you, right? I mean, the rest of it's just helping you develop additional layers of competency.
Right.
And all those layers of competency are increases in memory and the hierarchical memory that allow recursion, which allows time, which buys time. So I find this is, I was wondering, given that you see the philosophers, the neuroscientists, and the philosophers, the cognitive scientists, the neuroscientists, and the AI, the guys who work in AI, it's like you actually have to know all those things, because if you know only one, right, then you get trapped in the
Paradigm
limits of
trap.
the
Yep.
discipline.
Yep.
Where if you don't, I mean, the way because I think like an engineer, an operation, I'm an operationalist, so I work like an engineer. Okay, if I was going to build this, how would I have to make it work? And once you start with, basic neurons, right, and you understand the biochemistry that's going on in there and
That's funny.
how they organize. I mean, it's not rocket science, right? They can't do that much. So I think that anyway, so pull up to my top question, which is, if I were to say that there are a few points in this that require that would be assisted by diagrams or cartoons.
Yes.
Right. Let's get away from diagrams, cartoon
Right.
illustrations.
Right.
That wouldn't be.
It's not distracting.
It's not distracting. Okay. I'm just afraid it's like you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. And now, then we've got to create 1,000 freaking that we
Not
don't.
at all. Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. And I think that I think your intuition is correct. It'll be okay. And we don't need to overload it with pictures.
Okay, thank you, boss. Now I've got to go back to my reference material. Where the hell was it?
Where was I? It's a funny thing. It's like you're not really conscious. You just think you are. That's funny too.
The opposite of cogito ergo sum.
Yes.
Right. I think, therefore I am. Well, you're not really conscious. You just think you are.
Goes to the funniest thing I ever told the patient, right? I laughed at myself when I said it because it was so ridiculous, which is, when you're lying in bed and you can't stop thinking. I said, you're not really thinking. You just think you're thinking.
Yes.
And I'm like, I heard myself say it and I never heard it before. And it made me laugh out loud because I'm like, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard come out of anybody's mouth.
Yeah. You just think you're thinking. You see, I cut. It's funny because even these slides are an abbreviation.
Yes.
Right. So the book is more detailed than the slides, is more detailed than the pamphlet. Right. I mean,
yes, the book
and
is
it's almost like you have to do that.
yes.
Okay, so I want to stay in the section
Right.
that we're working on, which was here to that. But I wanted to start with this. Okay. So I'm going to cover these things. All right. That's the matter. So,
I'm just contemplating the image.
so this is good.
Yes.
All right. Let's ask this question for the narrative we're going to write right now.
Okay.
There's two metaphors I use.
Okay.
I use the edges metaphor.
Yes.
Right, which makes sense. I use the Braille metaphor. Braille metaphor, which is very close. It's almost exactly what the neuron is doing.
Okay.
right? It's collecting firing patterns,
Right.
right? It collects firing patterns that look for edges,
Coherence
right?
within interestingly, layers of abstractions, right? At the
Yep.
bottom, you see V1, V2,
Yep.
and not V3, V4, V5, but there's abstraction level. So V1 is not abstract. I'm just finding the edges,
Right.
right? And then I'm detecting the strokes, and then I'm detecting characters, then I'm detecting significance of characters, and then the integration of it all together.
Right. And the example used from Touch, this is,
I like that coffee cup image a lot.
I like this. And so at what I'm trying to explain is that the neurons fire like this. They identify this,
Yes,
which accumulates in this.
yes.
Can I tell that story? Is that gonna make sense?
I don't think it's necessary. It may be necessary. I think it does make sense.
In other words, well, put it this way, should I use those illustrations to make that? I don't, see, I don't think so, but
I don't think it's necessary
okay,
because we have talked about it. I think that could be properly in the science book because the detail level.
yes. Where's my, give me a second. Where's my, um, artwork? I don't need artwork. I need material. Where is vision? Actions. Where's vision? I did the goddamn video. Vision in the neocortex. Yeah. Oh. No, that's the video. The nervous system part 2. Give me a second. If it starts to make noise, I apologize. I'll turn the sound off.
This is Kurt Doolittle for the Proprietarian Institute. Welcome to part.
Just go over here. Can you see the vision, the neocortex?
Yes.
Over, we've got to disambiguate it in order to accurately seize and let the camera stand with those differences in light. The term we use, the illusion of making it, and it's accomplished by incremental means, like edges, shapes, textures, contrast, color, and eye. For entity, like an extensional reference, like cat that we know, space, no figurating by depth of field. Noise are disambiguous. We have to like the nearby relation to in between incoherent position, but texture, and then into sufficient fragments, and then into objects, meaning volumes, then into entities, meaning individual cases. And by expanding increases the scope of our vision.
This is the one I want to use
We
right
might
there, I
start with a
think.
very narrow thing like the elephant's trunk and add
Yes.
pieces together.
That's a good one.
But it's not, is it? Man, it both.
This one's
It
funny.
shows how many.
Yeah, I love this one.
Degrees of detail vision on features of the image. Now, I chose this for partly for humor. This
Excellent.
image shows how men and women evaluate the female body differently. Always make me laugh, as does the reflection in the mirror. And here's another one. This image shows how men and women evaluate each other's bodies differently. This is about what you'd expect, triangular men and breast hip waist ratio in women, with both using our most accurate measure of genetic health and condition in life.
I am really a nerd, you know that?
You kept it hidden so well.
Thanks. Yeah, we can't go to this level. Where's what happened? Where'd you go? Come on, where are you? Mommy, where'd you go? Hmm. You went somewhere. I moved it off to the side anyway. Let me close that. Close and open it so I can get the. Okay, now I want to do it again. There we are. We're over here now. Open recent system 2 vision, and it's somewhere around here.
I like that one.
Yeah, it's why I have people think I can't spell. That's not why. I just don't see it. All right, so we want to see this and this. All right. All right, so thank you for answering that. And what I considered a troubling problem as I was reviewing our work to say, how do I make this as accessible as possible? You're not going to say anything smart ass right there. I mean,
the issue is this is accessible as possible for what audience,
yeah.
right? That's the key question. And I don't know what level that we're writing in. Has that been evaluated?
I mean, I can ask it, it'll tell me right here. I mean, I know it. Here, let's just go. Fuck you, I did it again.
Me?
Oh.
We'll make short work of that question, won't it?
Why do you keep playing? I don't want you to play. I want you to stay right there.
Okay.
Oh, for Christ's sake. There we go. Now we're gonna go over to
Who? Which AI are you referring to now?
I'm not referring to either.
Oh. Oh. That's easy. What does it tell you? It's too small for me.
Reading level is 15.2. I usually write.
So that's third year college.
It's a reading ease, but it's available for a high school graduate.
That's perfect.
This is the fog index. Where's the fog index?
What does it say?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
high. See, this is the issue. This means you'd have to be in graduate school.
Yes.
I think Flesh Kincaid is higher scores. It's not bad. Flesh Kincaid.
Yes, I look at this, the target audience appears to be, to me, is people with graduate degrees are the people that will gun for you.
Yes.
And it's like they will be able to access this information with ease.
Right, but if I did my level of PhD detail like I did in the slides,
Yeah.
it's in the science,
It's then
overwhelming.
nobody will be able to get you.
You'll get lost in the-
level postgraduate PhD guys or postdoc guys may find problems with what we're writing here because it's not sufficiently detailed for them to be able to discern, because it's ambiguous in some sense that they find to be troubling.
Mhm.
And then that argument need not be addressed in this forum.
Right.
Because we can, the science book is what they're looking for.
Right.
And it's like, this is not for them anyway. We don't care what they say because they're not significant influencers in this regard. We're shooting for a more greater audience.
We can't. I'm not sure. Let me ask this. I believe I could do this. I could hit this. I believe that it's too much to go through the point by points. But if we do the introduction and closing of each chapter correctly, that's possible for a college student,
Yes.
right? Okay. Anyway, I can't remember when this stuff first came out and available for computers, but I bought the software.
Yes.
And it was back when, I mean, it was a long it was like the 80s
Okay.
when I started using this stuff, but I usually get around 14 to 17 here.
Okay.
This is about right here, so. Let me ask, here's something else. What's this? Let's do this.
Oh, this is good. Very specific.
So let's thread this. Well, that's weird.
It is weird.
Oh, see, it's much better. Oh, still takes a lot of brains to understand this. Huh. All right. Well, I'm sorry. I don't.
But to me, it's let's discuss this in a more general sense. The purpose of the pamphlet, right? The purpose of the pamphlet is to provide the proofs necessary to understand the Constitution as presented later.
Correct.
So we're looking for people who have the processing power and interest to engage the Constitution at the baser level
Right.
so that they cannot undermine it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
we're-
This is enough detail for that.
We're seeking to prevent undermining of the constitutional presentation, which occurs later.
Right.
And we're disarming the people who are sufficiently intellectually capable of such undermining in the absence of the proof that we're providing.
Right.
That's what we're doing. That's the purpose of this. So it's like, it's okay, it's good as it is.
Okay. I'm feeling good. Why can't I make you do what I want? Here we go. Let's do this. All right. I can't remember what I wrote between the last time we talked and now. Did I talk about this last time?
What am I looking, the division of labor?
I don't remember if I included you in that conversation or not.
I don't recall.
I think I added that. For integration, I think. Here, I added it here.
Okay.
Okay. Weird, you can't have one without the other. All right, so. Yes, I added it here. So I added the division of labor systematically throughout the section. All right.
Okay. Okay. That's good.
I couldn't remember if I had done that with you or without you.
I don't recall this, so I think you did it after.
Okay, so that's a first principle that
Which is
allows,
interesting because it will go into the social.
right. I hate this phrase. All right, so let's get down into here. Because and thank you for that discussion. That was really helpful for me.
Good.
Helpful for me, helpful for us. So we have this section. Okay. So I'm creating, I need to fix the false impression.
What's that?
I felt like I was making, instead of filtering and organizing and preparation for memory, I was making the implication that the the identification of objects and things were happening in the hippocampal region instead of local. And so that's why I wanted to work out this model here,
Right.
right? And so I feel that does the job.
Yes.
I had the next question I wanted to ask you, and I have possibly failed it again. Okay. So the next question is, where do we explain it's wiring, not data? So it could go a lot of places, but it feels like it should
even be precede the senses.
yeah, it feels like it should be up here,
Yes.
right?
There's the interesting function of it goes like this is it goes back to basic neurologic function, okay?
Okay.
A neuron fires or doesn't fire at some frequency, right? All that it has is frequency. So it's like the frequency tells you the importance of the signal, right?
Yeah, I'm just going to note this.
With some frequency. Or it's dead, right?
Right.
And so
wait, you said something important here. That's all it has to work with. Okay, good, great.
So the frequency tells you the importance of the signal.
Okay, the firing. So use information.
Yeah.
Frequency tells importance of the signal.
I would say reports, not tells you.
Yes. Reports.
That there is a signal.
Communicates or reports.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm asking you.
Communicates is better. Because it has to be received to have any value.
Okay.
I would say that there is a signal.
I thought I did that. I didn't do that.
No, sir. There's a strong illusion, however.
Well, it's actually if you read, especially when they're quite sophisticated in the 19th century, they tend to drop out what are unnecessary words.
Yes.
Right, because and that is one of them. The problem is it is clearer when you say this, right? Because there's
it's a form of extreme parsimony.
Yeah, there's a sort of relationship in 19th century, 18th and 19th century prose between poetry, scripture, and prose. And so you tend to see this, I am speaking like an educated person in the form of the scripture, in the form of the poetry and in my prose.
Yes.
Which is why it's quite elegant to read. I'm appreciative of it because they also use really freaking long sentences.
Yes,
which I find personally comforting.
I like it too.
But anyway,
They beat on me in college to stop it.
beat on me too, but I'm like, fuck you. I mean, basically, I remember telling my high school English teacher that said it'll be harder for people to read, and I I didn't think about what I was saying, and I said, if they don't understand it, then I don't want to know them or talk to them. His face just went. Are you? Is like that look of, are you an alien? I mean, what is
Boy,
wrong with you? And
I
want
tip
to
my hat.
understand what's weird about what I just said.
That's a hat tip, buddy. That's awesome.
Mr. Garska. Mr. Garska. He was also the one I told the story. He was so angry that I didn't take notes in class. I said, I don't have to. What you're saying is obvious.
Ways to win friends.
These are measures of how absolutely oblivious I mean, I was stating the truth.
Facts. Just
right?
the facts. Oh my.
How you can be, I mean, I had really great manners and all, but when it came to anything intellectual, I was just completely oblivious to the fact that everybody didn't think like I did.
Okay, so back to our point here, the note, right?
Yeah.
That tells, does that not transmit the information you require in this section or for this purpose?
It doesn't go all the way.
Okay.
So we need to go, we need to deal with the fact that neurons compete.
Yes, they're competing for attention.
And the only way of knowing, and how it's an economy or a game of survival, right? So we want to get that concept across of the information. And the third piece we want to get across is that they're actually transmitting kind of a connection. Pay attention to me, not some abstract data. So that's the 3 points we want to make.
That's right.
Right.
Okay. So put it, yes, I like that. I like that. There should be names for these, right?
Yeah. Where's this? Oh, I feel so good now.
That's good. Like I say, I tune into this show and I never know where it's gonna go. It's very exciting. It's like, wow.
Well, I think you probably know this, but so we finished some work. I feel good about it. And then what occurs to me is now what's wrong. Right? That's how I just look at it, right? And then, and it could be wrong at this level or all the way. I mean, what's not coherent enough for me yet, right?
Yes.
And then I basically saved them up until I could talk to you.
Okay.
Right. And because there's some things I can do, which I love the Chat GPT. Thank you, God. For
Yes.
Chat GPT. I can do things like with that, but that's usually over like vocabulary.
Yes.
Or have I got this set of terms right? Or if I use the sequence of terms, will that make sense?
Now, what's going to happen here is you're going to pull this note and ask for the proper, what will fill in for each of these spaces name.
Right. So let's finish
Yeah.
let's finish it. So a neuron fires or not, and it fires with some frequency. That's all it has to work with. All right, I'm going to add this so that I can ask it
Yes.
more clearly. All right. A neuron fires or not, and it fires with some frequency. I'm not sure my punctuation is really very good here.
I would say Fires are not with some frequency, without the comma.
No. I want to make it clear that it's 2 steps.
Okay. That's fine.
The firing
That's
communicates
fair.
that there is a signal and that the frequency communicates the importance of the signal.
That's fair.
Right, to
Okay.
me. This is competition.
Let's, I want to talk about number 1 again. Okay.
Okay,
So number 1 may be broken into 2 pieces.
yes,
Fires indicating some signal. Okay. The frequency determines the significance or the importance, right? The weight of the signal.
I like how it's phrased here,
Okay.
because we
I'm
do
not
it.
gonna argue with you.
Fire
It's
is not,
fine.
fire is frequency. The firing communicates there is a signal and the frequency of the importance of the signal.
Yes.
You could say that's all it has to work with, could move there.
Either way. Okay.
Right?
Needs a period after with.
Do we do it in sentence structure like this? Or do
That's
we,
fine.
or do
Either
we,
way, no, either way is fine. It doesn't matter.
it's probably okay this way. Um, um,
So it's groups of neurons, right? Now that's just number 2 is groups of neurons, or
yes,
neurons compete to belong to a group, right?
or attention.
Within a group of neurons, right? With whom they're connected.
It's 2 steps. Oh, I see. No, because I was misinterpreting, groups, local groups of neurons. Related neurons? So what you're saying is there's groups compete. But what you're
Right,
also,
what I'm building is the groups are we're building from, there's the neurons compete for belongingness to a group. And then the groups compete with one another. For attention, right? I don't know what else to call it, but okay, listen, it's not the neurons competing. It's the signals competing. Does that make sense?
yeah, I want to get away from data. I want to make it I want to keep in mind of the audience that it's a hardware thing. Is it though? Because what's being
It's the
communicated,
weight of the signal, which we discussed in number 1, the importance of the signal is competing with the importance of other signals. Because see, you've gone from step 1, there's a signal. The frequency says the importance of the signal. The neurons are grouped and clusters that have processes that generate a signal that has the same, it has frequency and what you're writing.
So is it a competition or democracy? Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That was bait for you, man. I see
I
your
know.
face. You knew it was bait.
I knew it was bait. I'm like,
Grin
I'm
on your
like,
face.
I have democracy. Oh my.
With other groups of neurons.
Right.
Repeat, I gotta do it the other way. That's not what we're interested in here.
That's good.
However, so again, I'm looking at the next one. So do neurons compete for attention within a group, and groups of neurons compete with other groups for neurons for attention by the importance, compete by the importance of their signals and the considers with other.
For attention where among other neurons.
So there's this, is that good enough?
Yes.
Because we'll ask it to improve it.
Yes.
Has or have.
Yes.
Oh, neurons.
The third one is a conclusion, isn't it?
Yeah, the third one is how do we explain that it's not communicating like some secret code or something. I mean, for
What
example,
you
let's
described-
take, go
What
ahead.
you described in number 1 is the pattern of a neuron's function.
Yeah,
And number 2 is they relate to one another.
mhm.
And the third one is the conclusion that it's relations, not information.
So let's take the visual cortex. I want to make sure I get this right. So let's take the visual cortex. It's the thing we understand the most, right? Because
Okay.
first of all, it's half of your neurons, right, in your brain, right? Half of your nervous system, rather. And then this whole back of your brain, we understand it works like it's a radial effect, right?
Okay.
It starts with the very back of the bottom and in these rings of V1, V2, V3, etc. I
Okay.
can't remember how many V's there are. I want to say 7 or 8, but I think that's not right. How many
Huh.
layers in the visual cortex? Layers of abstraction
Oh,
are in the visual cortex. It's V1, V2, etc.
wow. Okay. That was weird. I didn't expect that. Action.
That was way up in the
Okay.
text. Yeah, it's 5. So it's really obvious, right? Texture, disparity, motion, and color. And yeah, okay, it's really obvious. Sorry. Yeah, it's obvious. It has to work that way. Hasn't got a choice.
Right.
All right, so we did
This
it.
goes back to the image that you had before. V1, V2, V3, V4, V5.
Correct. Give me 1 second. I want to get back to our. I can't remember if I did it after that or before that. Here it is. So here's the question. So the first layer in the visual cortex just notices whether 2 dots are next to each other and what's their relationship, right? The next layer doesn't necessarily know about dots. It knows about it knows about a relation between things. The next layer knows about the relations between relations, right? So it's not only a relation between this and this, but it's a fragment, right? So
Okay.
it's like,
So
right?
see, relations is the key here.
Yeah, you're ahead of me.
Sorry, Kurt.
Oh, that's okay.
I pulled a Brandon on you. I apologize.
The 2 of you. I mean, between the
See how I distanced myself from it?
it was very good. Well done. Between the 2 of you, it's like, okay, let me make sure I get
Sorry,
all the
Kurt.
details there. So we know that we're right. You guys, you're probably mostly right all the time, but I have to Be sure.
But I like it that you prove it later.
Martin does the same thing, except
He
he's
does short circuits.
except he's like
Round
more.
it out.
He's got to be more precise than I am if it allows people to cheat, right? I have this stupid assumption that people have the best intentions, right? Right? Martin doesn't.
Marty brings an axe.
So he's always going another level deeper. No, let's not give them room. There's wiggle room there, right?
You must not allow this.
Yes. We just
So
we need a cities guy.
what?
We need the guy we're missing is the smart towns guy in our, because we've got the psychology and the neurology and the education and the science, and we've got everything. The guy we're missing is the smart towns guy. I had to recruit a smart towns guy. I don't know where I'm going to find that person.
What's a smart towns guy? It needs to be defined more thoroughly.
Well, there's a smart towns movement, which is why I use the
Okay.
And there are people who want to build towns that are livable for families, right?
Okay.
Livable for families, and they're also cognizant of class differences, right? So the trick in that game is you have to maintain a ratio of not too many people
Yes.
bottom
Yes.
level, right? And you have to distribute them around so that they have an equal interest in the quality of the commons that they participate in, and moreover, that the people that surround them force them to have respect for the commons, right?
Yes.
So
This takes just a little bit of dedicated effort.
to find this person,
We can find people.
I think
All we have to do is it's identifying. You're telling me what to do on X to find them and then attract their attention.
I have a friend, but I'm afraid because he's black, it'll cause weird. He's really good. He's not just a talker. He's a doer.
Okay.
But and he's African black, not.
I understand.
And I'm afraid to bring him into the group in case our wackos, treat him poorly, because we've got wackos out there. So
Okay, so I would regard this as an opportunity to signal our functionality as a group, as opposed to be fearful.
well, it's more that I'm respectful of him, right? I mean,
Well, no, I understand,
I
and
don't
it's
want to
like,
ask a guy to walk into a place where there's 10% hostiles because of whatever, right? I mean,
so we understand each other. This discussion is outside the scope of our current discourse.
all right,
I
well,
think.
I'm sorry.
I'm making note, however, in my little notebook.
We need to work. I can show you another thing. So let me show
Wait,
you.
did we finish the little piece?
Hey, I'm almost done. Find NLI, find NLI, find a.
Oh, I see. Task orientation.
Oh, I bet this is going to be. It's not logged in.
Huh. I like that. Buy a bank. List of things to do.
I had to go to this because I can't keep track of the shit I've got now.
I understand. Now back to work.
All right.
Number 3. There's a
So I gave over the hierarchy of what, and so,
this is what you're talking. There's a hierarchy of abstractions of relations that we're talking about in number 3.
right. So here's the goofball part, right?
The what?
Here's the goofy part,
Oh,
right? Your body is exposed to vibrations, everything from electromagnetic radiation in our
that's
sight,
right.
stuff we can't see, to solar radiation that gives us vitamin D and
Right.
and oxygen and temperature and smells and sounds and vibrations and highly organized vibrations that when we touch something, right? So that information, there's a difference between that information and creating meaning from it.
Creating meaning, right.
Right. So we have, it's basically action. Well, meaning means action in the brain.
Right. So I'm in the sun, it's warm.
Right.
I feel warmth of the sun.
Right.
And I'm thirsty and I've been in the sun too long and I need to get the hell inside and get some water.
Right.
It's a layers of abstraction.
Right.
And so groups of groups coalesce to synthesize information at higher levels of abstraction that are actionable.
Right.
Because it comes down to who is paying attention. In the group 2, we're talking about attention, but we're not talking about it specifically, but it's just groups. But at the next one, it's groups of groups competing for attention that generates meaning at higher levels of abstraction.
That's the trick. Is I'm trying to operationalize that statement. So,
Okay.
all right. So we can look at look at what the mind does in 2 ways, right? Right. I can see the world in camera obscura. I mean,
Yes.
I have 2 camera obscuras, which allows me to interpret distance, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so, but there's no meaning to it any more than there's meaning to the sunlight on your face,
Right.
right? There's basically a directional component,
That's right.
but there's no meaning to be obtained from this stimuli until it's created, it's organized into something.
That's right.
There's 2 things that have to happen. One is that the sense exists, right? In the sense that there's a colored dot there,
Yes.
right? And the second thing is, on top of that, how do we create a model how do we break it down into components? So we tend to think that that this is like a computer program transferring object packets. It might
Right.
not, there's actually 2 things going on, right? And one of them, and so that, you could say that the information from your eye, if you actually could see it, is too chaotic to derive meaning from it.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. It's because what's the staccato? When your
Yes.
eye moves like this, like all the
Yeah.
time, constantly. Because the middle of your eyes is highly concentrated, right?
Right.
And then as you radiate out, it's less because
That's right.
it's actually helping the competition, right? If I'm focusing on this with the center of my eye, that's going to outcompete the stuff at the margins,
Right.
right? Because it's lower density. And so, so what exactly are the neurons doing, right?
Ah,
All right. So there's three basic frameworks that it could be doing. I don't want to say which one I think it is. So it could be that you're literally seeing what you see, and in other words, what the two-dimensional world is, but it's being organized and given priority by your all the work. I mean, the work of your mind is not saying this is blue. It's saying I see fucking blue here, but what does that
yes,
represent in an object, a space, or a background,
right.
right? The second way to look at it is that there is no that all you're seeing is the product that's produced by the neurons in this competition itself. In other words, they're building a vision for you, and you're not seeing in the first example, you're seeing the world and then laying over an understanding on it, just like we're overlaying spatial models on it later, right?
I understand.
Right. Or you could be that you're actually only seeing this artificial model being created by your
Yes.
vision.
Okay.
And the third model is that you're seeing a hierarchy of memories that are being produced, and so this set of neurons is remembering the relations between those two, and the next set is remembering. So all you're seeing is actually memories,
Right.
right? I mean,
I
memory.
understand what you're talking about. Memories of models.
Right. And so of those three, it's difficult. What's so funny?
I'm waiting for you to ask me which one I prefer.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I gotta.
I'm gonna put some more mustache.
I gotta.
while
Some
you
people actually
expound.
watch these, so I have to complete the story.
I understand, but see, while you complete the story, I'm gonna put some mustache wax on so I'm properly prepared.
So anyway, I'm just dick. So,
I love this show. I just
it's
love this
actually
show.
quite profound. I mean,
I know, hit it.
I don't know anybody who. I don't know of anyone who can articulate that, right? Like that, because those are the three possibilities,
That's it.
right? Which of those possibilities do you think is the most likely?
The last one.
Yes, me too.
Because it's like, it's the abstraction of abstractions abstracted, and that's what you're aware of. Because it's like, the question that comes down to this, we have groups of neurons that are competing for attention. And it's like, whose attention? And it's like, it comes down to, oh, I remember that.
Yep.
Right? Because it's like, oh, because then I can act upon it. Because I have to have certainty in decidability when I act. And I use all of those faculties to pull it together to go, that's really the sky and not a blue diamond.
Correct. So now, if all we're transmitting is memories, is a vast hierarchy of memories,
Right?
from the simple to the full,
Yes.
then that's why we can detect changes in state,
Yes.
right? It becomes trivial.
Well, because it's like it's the accumulation of all the sensory information that has been put together and then associated and abstracted and then remembered.
Right. So, so I would say, as a person who understands both neuroscience and means of replicating it, it has to be the last one. right? So you have the last one. And then finally, we try to disambiguate this into fragments and objects and spaces and backgrounds and, right, we finally, and then their spatial relation to each other. And then hopefully some of that gets down to our temporal lobe and says, that thing is important, that thing's important. Maybe we want to eat it or avoid it or use it as a rock or something. I mean, that's how we get faces down there in the temporal region, right? And that's where the faces are back in here. And they turn out to be, for primates especially, extremely valuable. I'm not going to go, I have a terrible urge to segue into neoteny, studying primates, the human evolution of by neoteny producing self-agency, and the resulting hierarchy of neoteny of the races, and the persistence of unfortunate impulsive primate behavior in a declining arc from across that neotenic spectrum. And
We
I think
understand one
it's
another.
what?
We understand.
And I think that's video has made it, the video has made that
self-evident.
in a self-evident and inescapable reality. Because you just watch Asian people and they're hysterical, but they just sit there, right, immune, right? And you white people, we're not so immune, and South Eurasians, they're not much immune, and then Africans, they're not immune at all, right? I mean, they react, and you can actually get this in the startle response time of startle response time, and how you startle, what behavior you demonstrate in your startle response. Because it might be withdrawal, it might be steadiness, it might be standing your ground, and it might be violence or reaction. And so you see that startle response in the hierarchy of neoteny. Can anybody, you can't, I'm lucky I can talk about this stuff. And I mean, you see how suppressed I am, but I mean, you can't get away from it any longer. The evidence is overwhelming.
We understand one another.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take that segue. I'm just frustrated by it. Anyway, so in this number 3 here, this is what we want to get across. That we have a hierarchy of memories, right? And then on top of that hierarchy of memories, we start imposing, there's structural or identification layers, which are made by relations. I know you're going to figure this out if I ask you. So in other words, we get the identities out of relations, and then we get relations between identities, spaces, right? And then we get relations out of memories, right? From those relations. And then we get relations out of episodes.
Right.
And so this all happens in a continuous stream. So if we can get this, I want to get some of this thread, this has to be the thread, because that thread is what gets the story across.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, because it's good. It's a brilliant introduction to the entirety of this section.
Right. So what I want to know is, we could just state the third. We could also state the 3 choices, and it is the third. My instinct, if I was writing this on Twitter for our nerdy followers, I would use the full 3 sets and then explain it's the third. For here, I don't know if that's good. So that's what I'm asking you.
No, I would state it as a statement.
Yes.
So these three models, you're right? It's not you just come to the conclusion, because this is the conclusion,
Right.
and the conclusion is that this is how it's organized. It's a statement of fact, right? And then you can devolve the statement of fact, the memories, right? Or the relations of groups of neurons, right? In this competition generates actionable information, that is whose decision is necessary for the body to act.
Right.
And so that you condense it down like that. Just that's the final conclusion is the body can act when enough attention is gathered, given the memories and the layers of abstraction, and then it has accumulated sufficient information and motivation to act based upon the global competitive environment. Because the acting part is the only part that counts. Because that ultimately the attention is not significant until the actor acts. That
Right.
one is the one that decides which groups are granted attention, because they're all seeking attention.
Mhm. All right. So I think there might be another two here. Let me- Um, it's the motor cortex and the premotor cortex. What's the one that actually gets the input?
I don't know the answer to this question.
Uh,
Yes.
Hammer is 5480.
Hmm.
I love that I don't have to go to my notes.
Right?
You know, it's like so much easier to do this. Because I retain most of it, but I can't remember everything.
Well,
Jesus, did it just do the work for me? Sensory information from various parts of the body is mapped in organized manner on the surface of the cortex. This is so
huh.
mapped visually. The sensory homunculus located in the primary somewhat sensory cortex. Okay, that's what I should have been using. Sensory, some of the body parts is a portion of density of neuroreceptors, right? Because the regions of the body are mapped closely together in the brain, stimuli in the regions are processed identical adjacent cortical areas. That's for sufficient processing stimuli on the brain to maintain right. Competitive interactions can occur between neural regions of stimuli. That's correct. Different regions of the brain can communicate to provide broader context of stimuli. Examples, sensory information processed in the primary sensory cortex can integrate the visual information to create a more comprehensive understanding of the object or situation. Yeah, okay, so Grace, that's right. So okay. Okay. There are some nerves that are consistent from, say, the toe to the brain. I know
Yeah.
this answer, but I want to see if it can give me some way to say this well. Some nerves in that are consistent from, say, the toe to the brain, but once entering the brain stem, they are and then into the neocortex. Are these physical nerves feeding nerves somehow? Right, so
Right.
the reason is that vision is, I mean, so the back of your eye is basically an extension of your brain.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it's very, your brain is projected into your eyes pretty much, right? And then it goes through what's the thing where they cross over?
Optic chiasm.
You know, and they cross over and then they go back there. So there's processing there, processing there. There's a little more processing and then it gets into your, right? So there's a lot going on in that channel, right? So
Right.
it's more like your brain is being, it's like, I don't know if you see them make candy, like you take the sugar and you stretch it, right? Right. It's like they took your brain and well, I mean, back when we were little buggy things, stretched our brains into the eyes to make it work. I just think that's fascinating. So, but I don't know about all of the, I'm pretty sure it's true for the physical body. I don't know.
What?
Uh, you get all this stuff going up in the thalamus, which then regulates it, but I don't actually know. I'll get the answer here.
There's a lot of intermediary steps.
Yeah, I know this though. Yeah, but you're not answering this question. I know this.
What's the question you're asking?
Okay, is there or is there not signal consolidation I'm pretty sure there is, in the spinal column?
Cord.
Huh?
Cord. Not column, cord. Thank you. That's what's happening.
It has to be.
Send it.
I know it modulates them.
The only direct ones are the reflex arcs. That's the lowest amount of processing there is.
Yeah. So the argument is your spinal cord isn't a separate thing from your brain,
No.
right? It's more that your brain is an outgrowth of your spinal cord, right?
Right.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yes, the spinal cord. Go ahead.
Well, this is why it has to.
Yes.
All right, that's the only reason.
I think there's an intermediary nerve between in any reflex arc. There's a sensory and a processing nerve and an output nerve.
I think it's funny, like when you burn your, at least I'm aware of this. If I burn myself,
Yes.
I don't feel it at the time, but
Yes.
a moment later, I can remember the feeling of it burning.
After you pull it away.
Yes.
It's like, well, that was hot.
Well, I mean, it's that true, but you recognize it, but I actually can remember it getting hot, right? You have to listen, you have to be observant. Yeah, this is gonna be.
What do you look? What is it telling you?
Spinal cord can initiate reflex responses because of a specialized neural circuits known as reflex arcs, which Brad has reminded us of frequently. These arcs enable rapid, that's just a feedback loop.
There's a relay neuron, they call it, that's in between.
Yes.
So that you're informed about the fact that we just pulled your hand away from the hot thing.
Okay, so it's regulation, but it's not filtering. I don't understand. So let me ask this again. The nerve on my forefinger. Here. Why is that E? The lights do cause my eyes to water a bit, so where letters got fuzzy. If the nerve on my forefinger or the bottom of my toe, lower resolution.
No.
I think the answer is no.
Wow. Not directly connected.
Mm.
So you can see that in the spinal arc, there's an intermediary neuron. Everything is mediated by layers of abstraction, right?
Mm.
It can't get to the motor without being processed unless it's through, even it's being processed by one nerve, right?
This is not, it doesn't know the answer. Yeah, I know that. Well, the peripheral nerves to the dorsal root ganglion.
That's it. That's a processing center.
Yeah, I know that, but spinal cord to the dorsal root. I know that. That's just telling me the organ is that
Right.
the cell, the problem for your nerves, why they can't repair, is they're so long, and the cell body's got to have enough energy to serve that whole fucking system. But and I know these nerves go for the spinal cord, but it's not telling me that the physical connection, like I know there's a nerve that goes from your toe to your brain. Okay, but that still doesn't tell me.
I don't think so.
Look up what's the longest nerve in your body on while I'm doing this.
Do it. Oh, okay. The issue is this, it's from the spinal cord to the toe. I'm looking it up right now, as you have requested, Kurt. By special request. Sciatic nerve. What do you got, Kurt?
I'm trying to get to not confuse the passage of data with the physical construction.
That wasn't clear enough for me.
Okay, but this still doesn't tell me if the nerve and its cell body are a continuous connection from the receptors to the cell body to the dendrites and where those dendrites terminate. So each sensory neuron in the peripheral nervous system has a long continuous axon that extends from the sensory receptors in your skin, like your forefinger or toe, to the dorsal root ganglia, which is located just outside the spinal cord. This axon does not break. It is a direct, uninterrupted physical link between the sensory receptor and the cell body in the dorsal root ganglia. The dorsal root ganglia, the cell bodies of the sensory neurons reside in the dorsal
Yes.
ganglia. This structure acts as a sort of hub where the sensory information is collected before being transmitted to
Yes.
the central nervous system. Axons into the spinal cord. From this dorsal root ganglia, the axons of these sensory neurons enter the spinal cord. Here, the continuity of the nerve remains as the axons. Wait a minute. The axons of these sensory neurons enter the spinal cord. Here, the continuity of the nerve remains as the axons project into the spinal cord and ascend either directly or indirectly via interneurons.
Oh, but via interneurons. Right. All right.
Right. Once in the spinal cord, the sensory signals are relayed upward to the brainstem, from there to the thalamus, and the pathway might involve synapses where the axons of one neuron connect with the dendrites or cell bodies of another. These synapses allow for the transfer of information, but maintain the overall pathway integrity, guiding the sensory inputs to their destination. I knew it. I knew it. I knew this was, I was right. In the thalamus, sensory information is again relayed, this time to the cerebral cortex. The connections from the thalamus to the cortex are made by thalamic neurons, which send their axons to specific cortical areas designated for processing different types of sensory information. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I understand this one pretty good. I know this one. So please explain the dorsal root ganglia's construction and function. I mean, it has to be. Some stuff is like your back muscles, right? My back nerves. You can't tell what the fuck's going on back there.
Huh.
But you can right here. You certainly can right here.
Wait, I'm not looking. Where is Rob? Hang on.
Okay.
Gotta get on the right page. Where are you? When you say right here, what are you pointing to?
Oh, I'm saying in your nerves in your back, you can't tell where the fuck anything is, right? I mean, it's very dead back there. But if you look at you go to like your fingers or your
Yes.
nose or your
Oh, I
lips.
see. It's very high. It has to do with the density of the receptors.
Right. Okay, so dorsal root ganglia are clusters of nerve cells, bot neurons, found just outside the spinal column in the dorsal back region of the vertebral column. All right, their location spaces between the vertebrae, specifically within the intervertebral formula. I didn't know that. Each spinal nerve on its way to the spinal curve has a dorsal root ganglion. Yeah, I knew that. It has to be that way. Neurons in the DRG are primary sensory neurons, meaning they carry information about sensations. It's on my screen. From the peripheral nerves to the central nervous system. The sensory neurons are pseudo-unipolar. Oh, I knew that too, meaning they have a single axon that splits into two branches. One branch extends into the peripheral sensory receptors. The other branch goes into the spinal cord. I know that. The DRG contains satellite glial cells. I don't know if it's interesting. I don't think I visualized how concentrated the cell body of the nerve was. Interesting. In the spinal column. The DRG also, okay, in other branches, the DRG also contains satellite glial cells that surround each neuron cell body. These glial cells provide metabolic and structural support. Put it another way, look, most of your neurons, they don't got to communicate very far, so they can be little small things that they have, but you got to feed a sensory neuron, right? They need food.
Yeah.
And they need cleaning. The sensory relays. The DRG is an extra relay station. I don't think this is I don't think this makes sense. Signal processing. The sensory neurons within DRG detect different types of stimuli, pain, pressure. Yeah, signals from the sensors are tied to the peripheral branch of the neuron's axon cell body in the DRG. I know that. The signal continues by the central branch to the spinal cord, where the axon synapses with neurons that. Okay, that's the question. That's where the processing happens. Signal continues via the central branch to the spinal cord, where the axon synapses with neurons that will carry this signal for up the brain. Explain this.
Now Claude gave me the answer that there are certain ones that connect directly to the thalamus. Sensory nerves.
Does it say which they are?
I will give you the answers. So the question was, do any nerves provide direct sensory information to the thalamus? Yes. There are certain nerves that provide direct sensory input to the thalamus, bypassing the typical relay through the brainstem. These are known as specific sensory nerves or pathways. The most notable example is the optic nerve, which carries visual information from the retina directly to the lateral geniculate nucleus of the thalamus.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, the auditory nerve, vestibulocochlear nerve, projects directly to the medial geniculate nucleus of the thalamus, relaying auditory information from the cochlea.
Mm-hmm.
The trigeminal nerve also has direct connections to the ventral posteromedial nucleus of the thalamus. These allow for rapid processing and integration of sensory information, particularly for vision and hearing, which require quick responses. Other sensory modalities like touch, pain, and temperature still follow a more typical route through the brainstem before reaching the thalamus.
Thank you.
So the question is, given that, where does that lead us today?
It says that the processing, the organization of information is spread throughout the nervous system.
Yes.
Right.
The priority of the information is also distributed through the nervous system, but concentrated in the thalamus, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what the ultimate attention, whose attention is the most important attention, right?
Yeah. So it begins just like the optic nerve. Just like the optic nerves, the nervous system of the eye, whatever you call that, the visual system. It processes information all the way along. Logistically relays, yeah. Yeah, I think but the thing is, this is doing consolidation.
What is doing consolidation?
The spinal cord is doing consolidation.
Yes. So it's conditioning the signal.
Yeah, okay. So we explain it. We still use the memory metaphor because neurons learn. Yes, that's why you move funny when you're a baby.
Huh.
All right. All right. Brad, we had to work on that one.
That was hard.
All right. I don't know why, but I thought that more, and I know why I thought it. I know it because I've read it repeatedly, that the neurons in the extremities were connected.
I was unaware of this, and now I'm aware of it, to the thalamus.
I knew they were connected to the thalamus because that's what controls what gets through. Thalamus controls attention, but I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that there was consolidation in the brainstem, and that also that helps a lot. But it has to be. Oh, I see. Oh, consolidation is consistent. So if there's a low density of receptors, then there's going to be a high concentration. If there's a high concentration of receptors, there's going to be a lower density of consolidation. That's why you can feel this and this so differently. Okay. Makes sense to me. So funny.
It's the function of it. It's quite interesting because it's like if you look at the eye, the macula is the high resolution part of the eye.
Yes.
And it's like that one is going to have the it's going to be prioritized. So it's a prioritization of the nervous system organization, which is you get a direct line to the White House. You don't.
Exactly.
You're not important enough, right? Due to your spatial organization.
So really, I mean, it goes back to the nervous system doesn't have to know anything.
It can't.
It can't, right? It has all it.
It's reactive. It's merely reactive.
All it can do is compete. That's the point I want to make. The only thing it can do is compete. So the body organizes information by competitive density.
Yes.
Right. So the body organizes.
That's good. That's good.
Oh. I have to have a drink of water after that one.
That was a hard little tour right there.
I'm just recalling being in college and having to go sit in the fucking library.
Hmm.
And there was no way to search for this stuff, right? Unless you found a citation somewhere,
Yes,
right? There was no way to find
yes.
this information.
Now
And
you just have to know how to ask the question.
sorry?
Now you just have to know how to ask
Just
the
have to ask
question.
the question. No, how do I ask this question? Um, I still think, what is I find misleading? Oh, I know why. Because they don't think about it.
What's that?
Well, the level of detail necessary for people in biology isn't the same as the level of information necessary for the people like what I'm doing, which is explaining operations. Because they're looking at each of those little operations down there. But taking it up to, okay, yeah, but why can that work? Right, which is just the only way to know is Darwinian survival, competition. And how would you, it's like, how would you regulate anything? Well, if you want to have more priority, you put more neurons. If you want to have less priority, you put less neurons there, right?
Right, and and how direct is the linkage between that signal and the action, right? The
Right.
attention. And it's like, okay, this is important enough to wire directly. This is important enough to wire through 2 layers, or this is enough to
Yes.
5 layers.
So this is a theme that
Wait, this thought is so complex that we're going to have to root it through all 5 layers and
yes,
ruminate on it because
exactly.
this decision makes that much of a difference.
Yes, we need that much processing to deal with it. So the problem I want to get in, the thing that this gets me is when I tell people, all you have to do is modify the organization of the nervous system in order to produce variations. The brain, this is particularly obvious, right? So if you simply connect the hemispheres more, you'll get more in time. If you disconnect the hemispheres more, you'll get more overtime, right? Because the speed, it's like there's only so much water going through the hydraulic system, and you can only put it so many places, right? I mean, so
Because it comes down to the attention of the center of attention,
yes,
and it only has so much time.
yep,
And it doesn't matter how much water you got running through the rest of it. It can only pay attention to some of it.
yes. And then you have really complex diseases like schizophrenia is probably an immune system problem. And so you end up with the combination of not enough of whatever amine, um, uh, not enough isolation, and then some immune reaction or stress reaction that tips it, and now you can't your inhibitory system can't regulate what gets your attention.
You're not paying enough attention to the inhibition of attention.
Right, exactly. And so too much gets through. And then you have the autism thing where you can't regulate what gets through, and everything's compartmentalized. It's just, I don't know. I find this fascinating. It's just fascinating. Anyway, we need to finish
Right.
this thing here. So I would like to, now that we've done our research, I'm just gonna pay for attention from the group.
Right.
Proximity, density, hierarchy, which is what you just brought up. And then for
I don't like that term, transmission of memories, okay?
yeah, I'm
It's
so
it's recollection.
well, nerves learn, right?
Well, okay.
Aren't they do?
Maybe.
That's what they do.
What?
They learn patterns, right?
Well, they respond to patterns.
No. Well, yeah, they learn patterns and respond. Let's see. You might be right too. We're both right. So,
So it's a semantic question, I think.
yeah, well, I mean, so how do I know that I did the right thing? Is if I fired with somebody, if I fired with somebody else.
Oh, you grow a dendrite or not.
Yes, right.
And so that's not learning, that's tropism is okay.
Well, but that's all your neurons do is,
Right, but you call it learning, okay? I'm like, okay, that's stretchy, but I call it it's tropism is different than I don't it's
okay, no,
organization it's organization by proximity, right?
I think I got it. I think I got it. What do you mean when you say tropism? What do you mean?
I'm attracted to that and I grow toward it.
Right. Grow. Right.
They learn patterns. They develop patterns.
You're just not gonna let me use this word, are you?
It's a weird word. It's like they're dumb. They don't know anything. So it's like they don't learn. They group together and survive as groups, and you associate it with learning.
Okay. Now, you're right.
Thank
Right.
you.
Well,
I'm waiting for the punchline. There's a punchline coming. It's not done. That punch is not thrown. You've telegraphed it though.
what am I trying to explain in number 3 here? Number 4. I'm trying to explain what is transferred, what is transmitted as each layer of abstraction goes far.
I see.
And so
They respond to patterns. So you call that learning.
yes.
They respond to patterns.
Okay, we have to ask the judge.
Oh my.
Okay.
I thought you were the judge.
I'm gonna fuck with you. I mean, I'm gonna take the opportunity. It's just gonna happen. It has to be there. Is
Hey, it's not like that. Start with okay. Now I want the
respond.
truth this time.
Well,
Okay, I want the truth this time is what that means. Don't fool around anymore.
I love you.
Thank you, sir. I'm just making note of how you phrase your questions because it's interesting to me. Okay. It's a very interesting question. It looks like learning. That's right. You call it learning. It's adaptation and survival, right?
yeah, I think I think that we're gonna get there, right?
I like that question. That was a good one. So, okay. They don't identify anything. They respond to them, or they do identify them, or they
they collectively,
they recognize patterns and respond to patterns, right? Predictably. There's put predictably in there somewhere.
yes,
Thank you. Behavior. Yeah.
I don't know how to say this.
What are you trying to say?
Responding to a failure to respond to a pattern.
That doesn't mean anything. Yes. Wait, more importantly, not responding to other patterns. No failure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Wait, I wanted, there's
Wait,
another.
wait. Is it more correct to state that at some point learning occurs, but at all previous points
Oh,
only
I like that.
pattern? Do dendrite cell bodies and what's the end
Axon, synapse,
synapses?
tones. You missed a question mark. That recognition occurs, the last line.
Or is it more correct to state that at some point learning occurs, but at all previous points only pattern recognition occurs?
Question mark.
Do dendrite
Now,
cells-
There's a this construction looks like a via positiva, when in fact some of them are inhibiting other neurons from behaving. That's funny.
So,
Learning is an anthropomorphic function.
so
So it's like this. It is like a fiction created by us to describe adaptation.
right, or is a fiction created us to describe,
Signify.
label,
Adaptation, yeah.
well, I
That
think,
was a very peculiar question, Kirk.
why is that a peculiar
This
question?
is the kind of work that I wanted to be doing in college. Because that question is just too good. Oh my. Go, Claude, go. Oh, it's ChatGTV 4.
We should try this on Claude, because I think
Pull it.
I-
That's good. That's a hard question, man. It's a very detailed and sharp pointed question.
think I know the answer. Is that adaptation doesn't have, oh, maybe it does. Adaptation doesn't include prediction. Learning includes,
Ah,
that's the difference. Let's say so.
yeah, it says it in that first one. Learning as systemic adaptation.
Yeah, I might argue that the difference between learning and adaptation is that learning seeks prediction and adaptation seeks.
Does not require it. Yeah, survival. That's interesting.
You're gonna tell me I'm right.
Yes. Wow.
Oh, that was quick. Hey, let's go over this. See, you cannot get anybody to use the same goddamn terminology for this stuff, right?
Right.
I use the stuff the guys who invented it call it, and that's good enough for me. Groups of neurons for circuits give complex responding selectively to patterns of inputs. Specialize in processing different aspects of columns and regions, larger organizations like columns and corporate regions develop specialized functions. Yeah, exactly. Learning versus adaptation. The level of the individual neurons, groups, and even regions, what we observe might be more accurately described as pattern recognition and adaptation. See, you're right. These elements are constantly adjusting their responses based on it's recognition. See, I used identification. These elements are, so we're both right. They're constantly adjusting the responses based on the statistical regularities of the inputs they receive, which is the fundamental aspect of neural function. Learning. The term learning typically implies more complex, often cognitive processes when there were behavioral origin changes, either reflects acquired knowledge or skills. This is generally associated with input. Yeah, I think that
it looks to me like this. It looks like pattern recognition is the via positiva. Learning is the via negativa, which is you don't act on this one. Don't do it. And the inhibitory functions of the prefrontal cortex are learning. which is like, pay attention to the negative influence. Don't do that. That's going to cause you harm.
Let's try that again. It might be more accurate to consider learning as the outcome of complex interactions within larger networks that not only recognize patterns, but also associate them with specific outcomes.
That's memory and prediction.
Right? The higher level integration can be seen as learning in the traditional sense. Adaptation and learning, in a broad biological sense, learning can
Yes.
be seen as a subset of adaptation. Every learning process is fundamentally an adaptive process, but not all adaptations constitute learning in the cognitive behavioral sense. That's true. In the conclusion, while semantically simpler to refer to as learning, it may lead to confusion unless specifically defined. It's more precise to describe the activity of neurons, meaning of adaptation and pattern recognition, reserving learning for changes that are systemic predictive, right? So I might argue the difference between learning and adaptation is that learning seeks prediction and adaptation seeks only survival. That's an interesting argument. Adaptation is for survival. Basic function, in the most fundamental sense, is a process by which organisms adjust changing environments. It follows reflexes or instinctual responses. These changes may happen quickly without much cognitive blah, 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 blah. Predictive model building learning, on the other hand, implies that the organism develops yes, improving decision making, yes. Complementary nature, while learning is often about prediction, it can be seen as a more complex form of adaptation that involves forward-looking behavior. Yes, exactly. Hierarchy of goals, predictive learning mechanisms enable organisms to anticipate higher and avoid threats or seize opportunities more efficiently. Thus, prediction ultimately serves the survival function, but does so through a more sophisticated framework. In summary, adaptation seeks immediate survival and stabilization, while learning, yeah, so it's a time.
Time function.
So it's just time. So it's a
That's a
different,
very interesting function there to introduce. I like it.
huh?
I like it. The time function is interesting because it's like there's the amount of processing that has to occur for learning is much more processing.
Yes.
And it takes a longer time to see higher patterns, right? It's at a level of abstraction beyond mere pattern recognition. Because the frog sees the pattern, it's like something moved, I better jump. It's instinctual, right? It's survival. Frogs that don't jump when the pattern changes get eaten. Okay? Then the recognition of the pattern in the context over time takes longer because, oh, that's that pattern. I don't need to jump. But it takes longer to process the information and longer to acquire the information to learn.
I feel like we need to get this. Okay. Wow, we've done this is a lot.
Isn't it?
Adapt. It would see neurons adapt, right, to their inputs, right? Well, see, a neuron, the problem is we're talking about the cell body. You have the dendrites coming in and the What the fuck? Why can't I remember cell body parts right now?
Axons and dendrites. Boutons.
Axon terminals, thank you.
Okay.
So the learning is in here and here, right? The dendrites and these things do the learning.
Yeah, they changed their locations and
Right, this is just the cell body just determines
it's just the control, the hub that fires the whole system.
fires the system. It says,
It keeps it alive.
okay, there's a pattern here. All right. With see. I'm trying to figure something out here. Sorry.
You're all right. I just determined that I was right about the boutons.
For sure, right.
I had to check.
Well,
Sorry to disturb your flow of
the
thought.
Bhutan's the dick, and this
Right.
synapse is the vagina. I don't know what.
All right.
Did I take it to the gutter fast enough on that one?
Just over the line, brother.
Over the line. What's the actual receiving side called?
The what?
Why can't I? Can't see this. That's not what I'm looking for. Anyway, I'll figure it out later.
Okay. So, what is the problem you're attempting to solve right now?
Clarity in step 2. So that we can have clarity in step 3. So we can have clarity in step 4. Neurons compete for attention within a group of neurons with more. So it's coherence of the signal at each level. Okay. All right. Let's.
Within the layers of abstraction, right?
Say it again.
Within layers of abstraction and over time periods, right?
Yeah. We're trying to get. I'm trying to get, my point is, I want to say communication memories. Right, that's the top level.
Communication with memories, yeah.
Okay, so we could do it of patterns.
Okay.
ETTERNSCURVIVAL.
Yes.
You know, I want to get to this memories of memories. So experience.
Right. Very, very weird term to use. Experience is a very weird term. That's correct.
That's what I want to get to. So that's what neurons are transmitting. So I'm trying to get over what are neurons transmitting.
What an incredibly hard damned question. Right?
Well, you know, if more people worked on this problem, you wouldn't have, what would have happened to all these philosophers?
You're gonna throw them out of all work.
I'm gonna throw them out of a job. I
You're
mean,
getting more coffee.
I'm getting more coffee. I got
I am
so
too.
pissed the other day at
What?
somebody had Vervaeke, John Vervaeke again, on again.
You watch Verbakian?
Give me a second here.
I will. I always do.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna pause for a second.
Okay.
I can
You
figure out how
paused.
to do it. Pause. I just want to let you know Brad's picking on me.
Shit.
So I was complaining about about Vervaeke being on Kurt Jaimungal's show the other day, and how I can only take Vervaeke for somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes before my head explodes. And then I was talking Brad quickly through, well, English is an empirical language. right? It's the observer, it's independent of your feelings and
Objective.
thoughts. French is a sort of social moral language and framework in their philosophy. And uh, German is a sort of rationalist, but phenomenalist, a very psychological view of philosophy. And by the time you get to Heidegger, it's kind of humorous because Being in Time is simply an attempt to take phenomenalism into the language such that he's reversed the priority of noun and verb, so that you're thinking all in terms of of experiences rather than nouns, right? References. And so I see it as a kind of, in that sense, it's kind of cute, right? It's the end product. But if you say, well, it's also the feed that gets you postmodernism, right? Because you take Hegel and Heidegger and then you give Nietzsche's justification for it. Now you get postmodernism and all that evil shit that rolled out of that, with Marx and whatever. So
Wait, it's not done rolling. Okay.
yeah, okay, yeah, okay. So then we're talking about, well, Vervaeke's doing a similar, then Brad's course trumps him. He says, great, now you told me this fucking story. Answer my goddamn question, which is why are you annoyed by Vervaeke? Well, Vervaeke's trying to. Did I make you laugh with that one?
Well, it's like I just cut too many onions. It's kind of burning my eyes.
So
Ah.
that guy does not want anything to be concrete and true at all, because then he won't be able to try to his goofy sideways excuse for experiential, imaginary, pseudo new age religion version of philosophy. And I just like, why does anybody listen to this guy? He's in the same category of nitwits that Rupert Sheldrake is in. It's just that Sheldrake is so ridiculous that most people can say, you're fucking just crazy, right? But when you get to this guy like Vervaeke, and there's enough people that don't realize it's just nonsense. And it's basically evil nonsense, really. It's harmful nonsense. And so that's why I can't listen to him. I mean, it's one thing, I posted this thing yesterday because in response to it, I said, well,
Wow.
Who's actually not bad? Like, are there any philosophers living that are not bad?
Okay.
And so, there are two in cognitive science, they're just wrong, right? In other words, they're wrong about consciousness. They're trying to overcomplicate it, when actually, as we've just discussed today, it's hard to. I mean, we did a lot of work today so far.
Wait, I have to interject here, which is the reason we're having this little conversation is I'm trying to give Kurt's brain a little break because it's overheating a little bit because we were working hard. My brain is overheating too, so we want to. This is this interjection. That's what I did. That's what this conversation is stemming from.
Brad's taking the dog out for a walk, basically.
Oh my.
I tried to do something with children. I couldn't think of something fast enough, so I went to the dog.
Best you can do.
So anyway, so Vervaeke's going on this nonsense, and I just and then I said, well, are there anybody philosophers that aren't bad? I mean, there must be some that aren't bad.
Somebody's not bad.
Right. And
being
so
bad.
They're not full of shit, or they're not pseudoscience. Okay. And so I sort of went through this exercise and ended up with about 6 names, and two of them are wrong on consciousness, but they're not like stupid wrong, or they're not trying to make excuse for anything. They're not trying to make and justify some internal wish that the world were different from what it is, right? That's David Chalmers, and I can't remember what the other woman's name is off the top of my head. And then there's basically 4 others, and they basically say those 4 others are what I consider the role of philosophers. is that they're saying, given the challenges of today, what ethics might we consider in the future?
Right.
Given, right, and in base in fields, right? Given the technology, what's going to happen to our political systems, right? That's the job of philosophers, right? Is to say, okay, given what we know is true so far, right? We know so far, right? How might we look at integrating that knowledge into our individual and collective plans for the future? That's what in other words, the good, right?
Yes.
That's the good. And so I see philosophers working on the good as adding value. I see anybody who's trying to work on the true as a failed scientist.
Okay.
All
I
right.
understand you. That makes sense. That has coherence with me.
Right.
Which
And
I looked up. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Well, and
No.
so I was going to say, this led me to the one problem is that, of course, the way I've sort of developed is that, I refer to myself just because it's what the internet calls me, as a philosopher and social scientist, right?
Okay.
I actually consider myself a logician, like an epistemologist.
Yes.
And so I consider myself a scientist, and I'm trying to synthesize
Yes.
of the scientists apply it. So I consider myself a scientist.
Yes.
Any of the good stuff I say is a product of me knowing what's true. It's not a product of me trying to justify what I think is good. So
We understand one another.
So
Right.
does that make sense? So I don't consider myself a philosopher. I consider myself a scientist. But the reality is there's this sort of intermediary space where you're actually a logician. We are taking the findings of the sciences and
Yes.
organize them into a language so that people can understand what the new coherence among the science, among our knowledge that's arise.
Yes.
So to me, I see that as coherence, and I see the good as what the philosophers do. And I think this helps explain why I'm kind of reluctant to say what the good is. I just want to say what the choices are.
That's right. That's right.
I want to say what's true and what the choices are. Of those choices, you can choose whatever good you want. And I think that's my role. And I think philosophers' job is to say, well, for this group of people in this circumstance or given this thing, we want to consider it. But somebody has to synthesize the sciences, finding the sciences into a cohesive whole that's basically a paradigm, a logic, whatever. And that's what I see I do. Anyway, so.
There's a reason I help you, Kurt.
Well, I thought it was because you just found my
Charming and witty.
my sense of humor.
Charming, witty, and funny.
Yeah, I thought that's all it was. It's not because
Yeah, it's more than that. It's not merely that. Now, I did a little bit of research while we were in our little coffee break.
Thank you.
I looked up, I had, and I'm going to send you this because it plays into what we're doing here. I'm going to send you it in the chat. I got Claude to tell me about signal coherence, because that appears to be what we're talking about.
Yes.
Too long. It won't let me send it.
Competition for coherence. Yes.
And it's like the issue is there's coherence and it has a time function to it.
Yes.
Right, which is a frequency function, time and frequency. And I think the larger groups of neurons can pick up lower frequencies.
Oh, I love you.
I know.
Brilliant. So wait a minute. So I got to get this whole chain of you started with
Signal coherence.
no coherence.
And it has three efficient. Signal coherence has temporal coherence, spatial coherence, and spectral coherence. And it appears that larger groups of neurons are required to pick up lower wavelengths along those frequency functions. Or lower frequency signal.
That's
Which is
fine.
longer time. And I really enjoyed this little exercise that we're doing here, that although it was exceedingly difficult, because I'm patterning it to the conversation we're going to have about language and behaviors of groups.
It's all the same, right? It's the same with the.
It is, and it's like, but I think that we will do, when we name the names for these parts, that we will carry those names into the social sciences.
Okay, so note.
Yeah. Yep.
Give me tropism again. Jesus, why am I having a problem with this?
What's the problem?
Fine.
That's nice. These AIs are awesome.
I love this thing.
I want you to know I appreciate working with you, because watching you work with the AI helps me a lot to visualize potentials that I might not otherwise have been aware of.
You know, I got so much, because my penmanship, my punctuation, I got so much of a hard time in grade school. But I was always rewarded for my mathematics,
Huh.
right? So it biased me in favor of the mathematics and the sciences, partly for that reason. But if I look at my test results on like I'm actually higher in verbal.
Really?
Yeah. Importance of neural tropism. Oh, this is gonna make you excited. Don't get too excited here. In the context of neuroscience, tropism refers to the growth and survival factors that influence neuronal development, health, and functionality. Derived from the term trophic, which relates to nourishment, tropism in neurons is about the various ways which these cells are supported, maintained, and regulated through their life cycle. Key aspects: neurotrophins. These are a family of proteins that play crucial roles in the survival, development, and function of neurons. They include nerve growth factor, NGF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and BDNF, and neurotrophin 3, NT3. I didn't know about number 3. Neurotrophins bind to specific receptors on the surface of neurons, initiating signaling pathways that promote neuronal survival and differentiation, and can also influence synaptic plasticity. Well, that's a redundant statement. Of course, neuronal survival and differentiation means synaptic plasticity. Axonal and dendritic growth. Trophic factors influence the growth of neurons and dendrites, which are crucial for the formation of functional neural circuits. These factors can guide so we're just gonna add this down here, neural economy.
Yes.
This gets it out of the way.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is wonderful. We're having a great day today. Oh, I'm taking you overtime. Is that okay?
It's fine.
You let me know though. Don't make me feel guilty.
I won't make you feel guilty, Kurt. I will be self-inflicted.
Sir, I don't want to feel guilty. So please protect me from
When you
myself.
start feeling too guilty, you tell me. Just put out the signal and I will.
Does anyone understand why I love this man? I mean, I get more hard truth slaps in the face from this man from anybody on earth.
Oh my
I
Lord.
absolutely love it. What is wrong with me?
Self-inflicted, buddy. Self-inflicted.
Why do I enjoy the abuse?
I don't know. God help you. And me too. But I think this discussion is very useful because everything is based on nerves,
Yes.
right? Everything is based on nerves. And so getting the nerve discussion out of the way before we go into the details of the development of our experience, which is the remainder of this chapter of the pamphlet, is beautiful.
Yep. It's beautiful. I'm so excited. Okay, trophic factors for the growth of excellence. There is a crucial formation of functional nerves. These factors guide axons to targeting destinations. Yeah, I know about that. There's 30 of them. And promote the branching of dendrites and enhancing. Yeah. Basically, it's the resource that, yes. Neuronotrophism also infects synaptic plasticity. That's saying the same thing. They alter, yeah, but you're not talking about how they come about. All right, so remind me.
Where do they come from, right?
Yeah, I want to ask. I'm not getting that. And response to injury. Yeah. Okay, what is the mechanism? What is the mechanism that regulates the production of neurotrophins, right?
Right.
Oh, I gotta hit I don't know why.
That
Apparently,
thing.
they've got it figured out that if you have it expanded like this, and it's all function, you can hit the enter key.
Oh,
If it's but if you're constrained, like I am doing, it takes a while for this to, now it's gonna fuck around. Okay. No, it's still
wow.
working. Wait, I think I screwed it up. What's that sound? It's The Price is Right, or pick which
You're just way up. Oh my.
cost avoidance bias model, exploring inquiry through. Oh, I can just exit those. Reload this. Don't lose my question though.
There we go.
There we go. Neuropress regulated by the complex interplay cellular signals from environment. Yeah, I know that. Neurotransmitters are released in appropriate amounts in response to changing needs of the nervous system is no dependent regulation. Uh-huh. Yeah, and not telling you where it's coming from. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, I know that, but where are these neuro,
Neurotrophins.
I am freed if it doesn't know. We don't know. Gotta be in some cells.
Neurons, yeah.
Okay. This is probably where they happened. Non-neuronal nutrition. What non-neuronal nutrition? Oh, it's already answered here. So really, it's just like, it's not only that the cell body has to provide its internal homeostasis, but it has to produce a supply for its
Network.
network. Okay.
Right. So it's intrinsically network supporting, right?
Yeah. What is the to glial cells to say can't tell if it's yeah. I know these, however,
Hmm.
what I figured. That's what I figured. Yes, that's what I figured. Oh, yes, I know those. I don't believe that. Outnumber neurons 1.5 to 1. Yeah, that's right. Yes, I know that. Okay, so it takes a community, takes a village.
I was waiting for that. That was right, Rude. I liked it.
All right, so I just want to make sure I get this. The peripheral nerve, that's not the Schwann cells. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Immune cells. I didn't know this. I'll be damned. I did not know that. Boy, if it needs a cell,
I need
the
some
body
nerves.
needs something, it will find a way to make it. I did not
Yes.
know that.
Nor did I. It's not surprising though, is it?
It's like everything else we say. It does the body, evolution doesn't pick one way. It picks every way possible, right? And the best survive, and anything that works survives.
Rational utility.
The whole growth of ordinary cells into eukaryotic cells, and from cells to organized cells to neural cells, which I think is, to me, that's the most interesting one.
Quite interesting.
Because you've got to transmit a lot of fucking data.
Don't say that.
What?
Not transmitting data.
Okay. You've got to transmit a signal
That's right.
over such a long range. It makes sense inside a cell, right? You can sort of get that. And if Levin is right, you can sort of get how the
Regions, little groups of cells.
Right. You can sort of get that. Right. But if you want to transfer an electrical signal, basically a long distance, you need a cell.
Wow. And if you look at the neurons, they're differentiated into unmyelinated and the myelinated kind that are really big. It's like you got a nerve that goes from your back all the way down to your toe.
Yes.
Which is freaking amazing. It's amazing because it's like to create a myelinated one is like another, oh, look, we can do this. We can cooperate to make that happen.
And we know when myelination developed.
Huh.
It happened back in the age of fishes.
Huh.
And before that, didn't have it. So, you're constrained. That's why we could have the age of dinosaurs, is myelination, because you couldn't build an organism that big. You couldn't build an organism that big without myelination to transfer the information. There's got to be something I can do with the transformation from my brain to my dick. I got to think of something there. I couldn't think of it fast enough, but there is a joke to be had there.
For those of you who are doing research, come up with that joke. I know you're paying attention, so it's
got to be a joke there.
Hey, it's time to hit like and subscribe and the notification bell and tell the jokes. So, Kurt, you feel like we made some good progress today?
I think today's been amazing, and I think that it's a good thing we're meeting tomorrow, so it's still fresh.
Hot.
But I think that we've got the story here, man.
Beautiful.
There it is. It's right here. You've got the story.
And then we just flesh it out below. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and then we just explain it, and that explains, really that gets us, that produces what, are you going to argue with me over memories of memories or not? Because
No.
I think that's the easiest way to explain it.
It works.
Okay. Because if I say it's a hierarchy of memories or memories, we can produce that. That's the dumbed down version of it. But then it makes sense. And that shit you came up with longer of the extension of time by the number of that's right. That's good.
Thank you.
I was going to use it. I didn't. I did it based on recursion.
Yes.
So it's just so if you're almost everywhere, you start, and we talked about it happens in the spinal column today, but almost everywhere there is a feedback, right, loop to say, is this consistent or is there a problem here, right? And so the recursion alone, which is why I brought up the light speed thing earlier.
Yes.
Recursion alone is enough to insert time, right? That's okay, that's great, but that's not the same as the pattern of time that you recognize is also expanding. So we have the pattern of time and the recursion in time that allow the experience to happen. And I think that's the experience of consciousness to happen. I think that's the complete explanation that people need to see, is that if you start with just the body's regulation of homeostasis in the brainstem, then that's you, right? And whatever neurons that are closely related to that, and then up from there, which is probably just the anyway. So I think we've got the dimensions necessary to explain the consciousness phenomenon in a sense that most people can understand it.
Yes.
Okay.
What I really want to see is this story, you call it the story that we were working on today.
Yes.
We'll tell a story that reflects on that story at the beginning of each chapter.
Yes. If we do that, we're good. Now, are you suggesting, which I'm open
Okay.
to, that this should be somewhere other than in this section?
I don't know. I'm just no, I think that's a good section because
I
it's
think
like
that's a
that
good
other
section.
section is a precursor section. It's like
Yes.
because it doesn't matter until you start measuring it.
That's right.
And it's like you tell that story because it's like that's the advent of the nerve. It's like the cells have homeostasis,
Mhm.
but nerves do the other thing. They start picking up signal and do transmitting signal.
Mhm.
So I think that it's in a good spot.
All right. So I feel really great. Thank you for today. You're amazing.
Thank
11,
you.
12, 1, 2, 35, 3.5 hours. We did
Wow.
good. We did good. And I love you and thank you for all this. This is great. So I'm excited for tomorrow. Did
Thanks,
you?
Kurt. I did my thing, but I can do it again because you could do it. Even you late, you in the back, you're late. Like, subscribe, and notification bell, and then leave those comments. And then I'll talk to Kurt after he's done recording.
Okay. Stop the share.
Oh,
There we go. I should have stopped the share before you did your thing.
I know I would have been bigger.
And
Oh,
then
I don't
stop.
mind it. I can be small too.
Thanks, everyone.